Hello and welcome to a very special video. This here is some patch updates. We've got some patch updates here for you for Pokemon Unite patch 1.1.1.4. I'm joined by Kevin. Kevin, how you doing?
Hello, I'm great. How about you?
I'm doing good. For context, we have been super highly competitive players for the past 2 weeks since the game has come out on Switch. I have hit veteran class 5, and Kevin, how high have you gotten?
Master.
Well, there you go. A wee bit higher than me. But what is coming is going to potentially change the entire game. So everything that we've known for the past 2 weeks is completely flipped on its head. So let's get into some of the changes. The biggest one, we're going to save until the very end. But to start, let's talk about some of the Pokemon that were changed. For this, I have gone and categorized everything into 3 categories. We have Pokemon that were buffed, Pokemon that have been made objectively better by this patch. We've got Pokemon that were nerfed, Pokemon that have been made objectively worse, and Pokemon that were fixed or Pokemon that were tweaked, Pokemon that have been reworked to be played as intended. Some parts were nerfed, some parts were buffed to accommodate for the nerfs. Starting with Venusaur. Venusaur received a major buff this patch. Venusaur had its Sludge Bomb damage raised, its effects strengthened, Petal Dance has been upgraded, Solar Beam cooldown has been reduced, and its Unite move, Verdant Anger, damage dealt has been raised. Kevin, what do you think about Venusaur being raised?
Well, they're definitely paying attention to the way the game works, because Venusaur was the #1 Pokemon used if you were trying to troll in Master Rank.
Yeah.
It was definitely the weakest link out of every single Pokemon. Usually people can make the argument that if you're good at a Pokemon, then the Pokemon can be played well. Venusaur was the exception to that rule. So I'm glad that what they're doing is fixing it, because it definitely needed to be fixed for sure. It also looks like the melee variant is getting a nice increase there with the Petal Dance upgrade, and now you can do so much more damage with Verdant Anger. The notes are very vague in terms of the amount of numbers they give us, so I guess we have to wait and see, but we can only hope that they're meaningful numbers.
I agree with that. Yeah, and something that if you're new to MOBAs that you'll see in a lot of other ones is very detailed patch notes, and that's just something that Timmy and Tencent just kind of aren't doing with this one. It's very Nintendo fashion to say like, hey, we have fixed this. This is what it's going to be now. And we kind of have to figure it out for ourselves what that means. But I'm excited to, so that's good.
You have these individual values that you can't see.
Exactly. Yeah, IDs, exactly. Let's move on, though. We've got Talonflame. Talonflame, Acrobatics, Aerial Ace Plus, and Fly all have had their damage increased. Now, before you think that sounds like a lot, it's not too much, since Acrobatics is the first move before Aerial Ace anyway, so... It's just had its whole kit reworked from when you press the I guess R button or whatever you've mapped that to. And a lot of guides were surprised at this one. A lot of guides were surprised, saying like, Talonflame is super OP already. Why have you buffed it more? It's like, no. What?
I'll tell you this. Talonflame is super OP if your positioning is super bad.
Yeah.
Then it's OP because it can really take advantage of where you are. But yeah, no, Talonflame I think deserves a buff. I think anybody with common sense can tell you that Talonflame was not at the caliber with Zeraora and Gengar. Not even with Absol, in my opinion. It was never a top tier speedster. I do think speedsters in general as an archetype are stronger than most, right? They seem very oppressive as an archetype. But by raising Talonflame's damage, all you do is just open up the meta to a new character that can maybe overtake these Gengars and Zeraoras that are running around.
Yeah, I think what you'll see a lot in these buffs and nerfs is that they took whatever build was the weakest and they brought it up in power. And if that build that they were using otherwise was too strong, then they brought that down in power. A great example of this is Gengar. Let's just get right into Gengar here. Gengar, basic attack had bug fixes. Whatever bug fixes means, it might mean the way that it interacted with certain moves or the terrain. Who knows? We'll see. Shadow Ball had its damage increased, and Dream Eater is getting a move upgrade, which we're going to see what that does. But the most important thing with Gengar is that Hex is being downgraded. Now, whatever that means, we don't know. I suspect that that's going to be something like increase the damage between your jumps when your opponent is poisoned. It takes like maybe 2 seconds instead of the 1 second for Hex to come off of cooldown. Because right now, Gengar is just wreaking havoc in the upper tiers.
I love that thing. I love it so much.
For now.
I have a couple more hours to play it.
Exactly. Do you think you'll still be playing Gengar after this?
Honestly, for those of you that don't know, Gengar is my most played character. I have over 200 games with that character. So I feel like I kind of have to, because I understand the kit and I understand how it works. It all depends on how bad this downgrade is going to be. Because it's not a simple calculation of, hey, we're making it do less damage or cooldown reduction. Because then it would have said cooldown reduced or damage reduced. It says downgrade.
Yeah.
So let's see how down that downgrade is.
Exactly.
But who knows? Maybe Dream Eater will be OP. That'll be the new one.
Moving on, we've got Charizard. Charizard was another big one on the online forums. Charizard's flamethrower had its cooldown reduced as well as its effects boosted. So flamethrower just got a straight buff. Charizard was fully buffed in this one. Fire Punch had its effects boosted, and Fire Blast had its cooldown reduced as well as its effects boosted. Now Charizard's already kind of been tweaked a bit, as you were saying, right?
Yeah, Charizard was the first Pokemon touched because the way that Muscle Band affected Charizard's ultimate move wasn't done as intended and would do way too much damage. And a lot of Charizard mains were very upset because for the couple of days after that hotfix was released, they were like, they gutted my character. But now they're giving some love back to the big old lizard. Flamethrower CD down, Fire Punch effects boosted, and Fire Blast CD down. That's really relevant.
See, but that's another thing that online they were just saying that like, oh, Charizard's been buffed. Why did Charizard need a buff? My Charizard was already doing so well. It's like, no, Charizard wasn't that good up until now. Like if you play any of these Pokemon well, you will do well in the game, mind you. But in my opinion, I just don't see good Charizard play up high, and I think that's because of all of these pre-changed attacks.
I mean, if you don't see a person playing a Pokemon in 10 games, it's probably not that good. And I'm pretty sure that my Charizard ratio is about 1 in 10 games. I'll see a Charizard.
Moving on, we have the spoiler alert, the one and only Pokemon that, in our opinion, was nerfed in this patch, and that would be Cinderace. Cinderace has had its attack dropped, it's had Blaze Kick's damage reduced, and it's had its feint downgraded. And again, we'll see what that means. Might mean less of a time that it's actually doing the little dipsy doodle around the attacks. But in return, it's had its Pyro Ball damage increased. Now, in my opinion, I think that this is just a straight up nerf, because if you're lowering the damage on Cinderace, it doesn't matter if you're upping the Pyro Ball damage, your attack stat went down. It's the same kind of Pyro Ball. You're just making that the stat, the move that you're using, because your Blaze Kick now has less damage twice, mind you, because the attack stat went down and the Blaze Kick damage went down. So unless it's like flat damage from the attacks, I don't know. But I don't think people were opting to go for Blaze Kick instead of Pyro Ball because Pyro Ball wasn't doing enough damage. Like, people were going for Blaze Kick because it's a surefire hit, because it can track down a Pokemon. And what was the other reason?
It displaces them, so it cancels ultimates.
It cancels Unite moves. So, like, people are still going to be using Blaze Kick over Pyro Ball because Blaze Kick has so much more utility over Pyro Ball. But it's just going to be doing less. And so by extension, Cinderace is going to be doing less.
Cinderace, I gotta say, is completely gutted this patch.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's intentional, because if you actually scroll through the top 10 players on in Master Ball tier, like 8 of them are Cinderace players.
Yeah.
And it's for a good reason. The Pokemon is good. And if it's played by a good player, it can carry the whole game because of how many opportunities it has to be untouchable.
Every single game I play these days has had some Cinderace in it.
Oh yeah,
on both sides.
According to Timmy, they think that 0 minus 2 plus 2 isn't 0 because they're lowering the attack but raising the Powerball, so they're right back to where they started.
Exactly. All right, let's move on. That was Cinderace. Big nerf, big rip to Cinderace this patch. Wigglytuff
Huge.
might be taking the spot.
Huge, scary.
Yeah, terrifying. Wigglytuff has had its defense and its special defense and its HP increased in this patch. Double Slap's damage goes up. Double Slap and Sing are both made more effective, again, whatever that means. And Dazzling Gleam is having bug fixes, which, again, whatever that means. But that's a lot of increases for Wigglytuff.
Yeah, they gave Wigglytuff a lot of love this patch, and it's because, I don't know, maybe they were listening to Pokésports and listened to us talk about Wigglytuff so poorly. But
this is exactly what we've been saying about Wigglytuff, by the way, is it just needs to be a little more tanky and do a little bit more. The reason that it's not picked isn't because it's a bad Pokemon by any means. It just doesn't have anything over, say, an Eldegoss or even a Slowbro, as different rank, different category, but still.
I think when we were looking at the stats for Wigglytuff, we looked at the Pokemon and we were like, okay, this has moves that a defender would be.
Yes.
But it has the stats that an attack damage carry is. So it was like, what role are you trying to fill here, Wigglytuff?
Exactly. Wigglytuff being classified as a supporter is very strange to me. What with rollout and double slap,
and the sleep.
What's the support there? Yeah, the sleep.
It sounds like a
defender.
It sounds like a defender to me, personally. Right. But hey, I'm afraid. The second I see a Wigglytuff running at me at full speed with a big AoE Sing, I'm gonna be terrified. I'll tell you that right away.
Truly. Moving on to a fixed Pokemon. This Pokemon has been expressly fixed. Zeraora. A lot of people are saying that this fix wasn't enough, and we're gonna have to see. But Spark has had a bug fix. We'll see what that means. Wild Charge has had its damage dealt increased and its cooldown reduced. And then its Unite move, Plasma Gale, has had its damage reduced. Now, I will give it to them that the Unite move did way too much damage.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that one.
Yeah.
It was like 3,000 damage just raw. It's a little ridiculous.
I like the idea of upping Wild Charge and incentivizing people to use Wild Charge more, but why people would use Wild Charge over the other move is kind of lost on me.
Yeah, they didn't touch Discharge at all, and Discharge was one of the bigger problems that people playing against Zeraora had, was just being in that big AoE field and just not being able to get away from Zeraora, and Zeraora just clings on to you, is the big issue with that Pokemon, and they didn't touch it at all. I mean, I guess they felt like maybe with the Unite move damage, unless the Unite move is a significant decrease, maybe that'll help, but I don't know.
I think early game Zeraora, people are still going to be so afraid.
You should be. I think Zeraora is still going to be S tier after this patch. This isn't a nerf, it's a tweak. Like we were saying, it's a fix. They fixed some of the problems, but there's still underlying issues that need to be dealt with. I guess they'll worry about that in upcoming patches.
Yeah, and I mean, by upping the defense of Pokemon like Wigglytuff and a couple of other fixes, they might not have seen the need to make Zeraora, kind of useless. They'll see now if it continues to be on top, or if the buffs from all of the other Pokemon are enough to make Zeraora just on an equal playing field as everybody else. So we'll see. Moving on, another buff. We have Absol. This one's a little strange to me. There's a basic attack bug fix on the way for Absol, but also Night Slash and Sucker Punch are having their damage increased. Sucker Punch, sure. A lot of people are taking Psycho Cut instead of Sucker Punch. So up Sucker Punch's damage, make that a little bit more worth taking, fine. Night Slash, though, that's like your typical Absol build. If you're going into the jungle with your Absol, going into that center lane, you're bringing Night Slash and Psycho Cut most of the time. You're doing that little crescent moon dash so that you can dash again. then you're going for the Psycho Cut. Bringing up Night Slash's damage is actually going to make Psycho Cut do even more because Absols usually run crit builds, and you're just doing massive damage to every single person every time you're critting with that.
Yeah, this Absol buff seems a little strange to me because I never considered Absol a bad jungler, just a worse jungler than Gengar and Zeraora.
And maybe that's why.
Yeah,
maybe they're
just trying to bring it up to par.
Yeah. Again, it's all about putting the Pokemon on an equal playing field. Right now, it looks like they're going for extreme balance with all of their changes, and we'll talk about that at the end as well. But moving on from Absol really quick so we can get through the rest. Eldegoss. We had a massive fix for Eldegoss. The internet has been clamoring for an Eldegoss fix for a long time, and they delivered. Cotton Guard has had its cooldown up and its restoration down, so now you can use it more times and it heals less. Cotton Spore had a buff. Its cooldown went down, its effects were strengthened, and its defense and special defense increase that it gives go up. Unite move, Cotton Cloud Crash. Its HP restoration was decreased. So worse ulti, worse Unite move, better Cotton Spore, which nobody was using anyway. Worse Cotton Guard.
Interesting decision because people are still going to use Eldegoss.
Yeah.
The reason they're going to use Eldegoss is there's no other Pokemon that does what Eldegoss does.
Right.
So they could honestly just remove everything from Eldegoss. People will still use it. But Eldegoss was definitely S tier. I think a lot of people can agree with that. But I don't know if it's S tier because its moves are good or because we don't have other options.
Yeah, it's a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah. I mean, it's really easy to be number one when there's no other players, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on. We've got Cramorant. Cramorant has been fixed. Whirlpool and dive damage has been changed. Whirlpool damage decreased, dive damage increased. Whirlpool is the first the first attack that you get, which means that early game Cramorant's going to have a little bit more trouble. But once you get that dive, if you don't go Surf, pretty good.
The good thing about Cramorant here is that they didn't touch Surf at all.
Right.
Because Surf was my personal preference. Dive is very risky because you have to play with positioning very well because you're just throwing yourself into the enemy team. But the Whirlpool damage decrease, I understand. Like my second most played character is Cramorant, and the Whirlpool damage early game is very oppressive, and it's so easy to secure the center minions when you have Whirlpool damage that does their whole health bar.
Yeah, we're gonna see some big early game plays. Now that Cramorant has kind of been taken out of the picture. Because before it, Cramorant going into a lane, that's like an instant. You get that middle Pokemon. You get that extra little bit before your first fight. Machamp. Machamp is next. Machamp has technically been fixed. In my mind, it has been buffed. There's been a basic attack bug fix. Not sure what the basic attack bug fixes mean. You've heard me say it time and time again. Cross Chop. The damage has been decreased. Close combat, the damage has been increased. And anybody out there who's been playing Machamp and using close combat as much as I have, they're like, whoa, thank you. Okay. I will take that.
I'm surprised they didn't touch submission at all after seeing videos of you yanking people outside of their own base.
Exactly.
But I guess that wasn't necessary.
No, it's
as
fine.
Intended.
It's as intended. Yeah, we should submission them so that they can't eject
recall.
button over or recall over. You know that pulls back from eject button too?
Yeah, it pulls up. I think you are stuck in the air the second they lock onto you.
That's right.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's right.
But wow, cool.
Wow, Machamp
players, you're welcome.
Have fun. Lucario. Lucario's a little bit of a strange one. Power Up Punch and Bone Rush had bug fixes. And this one, as vague as the patch notes are, this one is the vagueliest. Because the amount of words in the Lucario tooltips for Lucario's moves, for those two moves specifically, Power Up Punch and Bone Rush, they do so many things. I don't know what they do, man. I can't be bothered to read that much. And if you're fixing it, yeah, probably, because there was a lot to do with those moves. Those moves did too much.
Whoever developed the game was definitely a Lucario fan. I spent a lot of time with that Pokemon.
Let's start the game as Lucario.
They could have made a Riolu, but they didn't want to. They're like, no, we want early game damage. We love Lucario.
Wow. moving on, the last two are kind of nothing fixes. Greninja has had a basic attack bug fix, but actually Alolan Ninetales, Snow Warning has had a bug fix. That of course is Ninetales' passive, where it drops a little circle and does a little bit of damage, applies a stack of frozen. Kevin, you had a pretty good thought as to what that bug fix probably is.
It's probably the fact that if you are sitting in a bush with the Ninetales in the lane, you are not in vision, but Snow Warning knows you're there and will still attack you. So I think that's probably it, because that seems a little stupid. I mean, it defeats the purpose of a bush.
Yeah.
Mike was saying that it was definitely a warning.
Yeah, exactly. It's a warning that the Pokemon's there.
It's a snow warning.
if they don't fix this, then that's going to be another fun 2 weeks before the next patch. You can see when Pokemon that you haven't seen yet are there.
Yeah, right.
Ruins any chance of ganks. So thoughts on this first patch? This is a huge patch. What do you think? What do you think we're gonna see out of this?
I think it's interesting that they decided to balance Pokemon out. Because Pokemon had it so that they had a path. They had a certain build, and there were just 2 moves that were better than the other 2 moves every single time. This is giving people an opportunity to, hey, maybe try out those other 2 moves that you forgot about, right?
Right.
Maybe have it so that you can run both a Dream Eater and a Hex Gengar equally effectively. You can run a Wild Charge Zeraora or a Discharge Zeraora equally effectively. I think it's interesting. I think that's the intention of the game, is to, by giving everyone buffs, you eventually balance them out. So here we are.
I think they came to a point where they're like, all right, the game functions well enough. We can hotfix crashes and we can hotfix this and that and the other. But the thing that people are going to complain about the most is if a certain Pokemon or a certain build is completely overpowered. Yes, we don't still have a fix for Pokemon during selection, how every time you select a new Pokemon, your game freaks out and it darkens the screen and loads up a new Pokemon. They can fix that whenever they want. Right now it's just, let's get the meat and potatoes of the game running as it should. I do like, how there's less oppression from Gengar and Zeraora and Eldegoss. The Absol buff is a little scary, and I do like that it, even with the Night Slash buff, that's going to make Absol a better contender in the early game, and that's something that Absol, I feel, struggles with. Much like Gengar currently, where you're kind of waiting until level 7 until you have your Hex and your Sludge Bomb. With Absol, it's the same kind of thing. You're usually waiting until you have your Night Slash and your Psycho Cut before you go in and attack. So we'll see if that changes the game. I feel like we're definitely going to see a lot less Cinderace, which
absolutely, yeah,
I'm okay with.
And we might actually play Greninja.
Yeah, and eventually we'll get a Defender patch. So
yeah, Defenders were completely ignored this patch.
Oh, definitely.
But they're good, and they're probably going to keep remaining good. So don't have to worry about that too much.
Now, you folks, if you're catching this as it comes out, first of all, go and say hi down in the comments. Second, if you're catching this well after it comes out, the patch is already implemented. It's coming out at 3 a.m. today. So Eastern. So please do, if you have been playing it, let us know how accurate we were. We gave a lot of thoughts as to these. And you know what? Just give us your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do let us know what you think.
If you like this, we'll do more.
Exactly. Yeah. If you want us to give updates on the Unite patches, please do let us know by hitting that like button and letting us know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to Pokésports, because we put out new different kind of videos all the time. Subscribe to us on Twitch if you're looking for actual Pokemon Unite content, because we've been playing Pokemon Unite like crazy over there. Twitch.tv/Pokésports is where you're going to want to go. Links also down in the description as well. And that's all from us. Kevin, you got any final thoughts?
A lot of PokeTubers were questioning why Zapdos wasn't touched at all.
Why?
Zapdos is fine.
We're going to talk about this again, yeah.
Zapdos is fine. It's
Folks,
part of the game.
we got to say this again. And you know what? The best comment that I've received was actually today, saying that Zapdos isn't necessarily OP. The problem with Zapdos is that it comes in at 2 minutes. You don't get a first like little buffer time to start scoring your goals on the opponent's goals. If they brought in Zapdos at like a minute 30 or a minute 45, that might give a little bit of extra playtime with Final Stretch without the stress of needing to be at Zapdos right at the beginning of that. Mm-hmm. So that's the first argument against changing Zapdos that I've kind of agreed with. Everything else, it's like, no.
See, the thing with that, the issue with that is that Zapdos is nice because you can fail a team fight and still respawn and come back and have a second team fight, so there's still that backup. So reducing the Zapdos timer would reduce that team fight factor. What I think would fix Zapdos, not fix because it's fine, but like, you know, improve it, would be if they decrease the amount of seconds you have the instant goal for. Because I think you have it for 20 seconds and a lot can happen in 20 seconds. Like, just decrease that like 3 or 4 seconds or something.
Yeah, give us like 15 seconds, like just have them charge over there.
Stop them. Yeah,
exactly.
It's impossible to stop them. That's the only thing we have to do. Exactly. That's our 2 cents. They're not changing it, so get used to it.
If there are any kind of changes that you want to see, let us know in the comments below, because clearly Timmy and Tencent and Pokemon, they all watch these videos, so they are listening though. I will say that they are listening.
I'm very happy. Yeah,
I'm very happy with what they're doing.
Oh, there's biggest change mode too. Yeah, we forgot about it.
Spectator mode.
It's been 2 years.
We might be getting it. We will. They're testing it. They're doing a test release of it. If they do put in proper spectator mode in this, instant like esport. It is the esport.
Immediate. Yep.
Welcome.
Thanks, VGC.
Welcome.
Should have tried harder.
Oops. You see how it took 2 weeks?
2 weeks versus 2 years. Who's winning?
A little bit of a beta plus 2 weeks. Yeah. Anyway, that's been our thoughts. Please do let us know down in the comments below. Yeah, cool. Thanks, everybody. Bye.